Hello everyone, welcome to YourPedia platform. I'm Rohit Singh and today I'm going to be discussing a DRDO interview question with you guys. So in a DRDO interview, they may ask you a very simple question and then they move forward and increase the depth in the question and ask you various questions regarding that portion, right? So I'll discuss a question with you and I'll take it as a interview pattern, right? So let us say that they might ask you what is Froude number. So everyone know that Froude number is basically the ratio of inertial force to the gravity force. So Froude number is equal to root of inertial force upon gravity force. Now this is very simple. In this way they can ask you, but then they ask you and increase the level of the questioning, right? In the second part, they might ask you that please justify what is the significance of Froude numbers in open channel flow. So we use Froude number in open channel flow for a major reason is that the flow in the open channel is because of the gravity forces. Because what we do is so since in OCF the flow occurs under the action of gravity, so this is the main reason. So under the action of gravity, hence gravity force predominates. So there will be inertial force and gravity force in open channel flow, and that is why we use Froude's number, correct? So now how the gravity force dominates, right? So what happens is, what we do is in open channel flow we lay open channel at a certain slope and water travels in the downstream direction just because of the component of weight in the downstream direction, which let's suppose this is this much water or control volume we are taking. So W sine theta, the component of weight in the downward direction is W sine theta, and this is the driving force basically. So this is the driving force, right? And this driving force is basically occurring due to the action of gravity or the sloping. Since the bed slope is at a certain angle, hence the gravity force will be causing a the driving force in the flow, and that is why the flow occurs under the action of gravity. There is no pressure force, right? Pressure in that. So for our open channel flows, Froude number we can calculate as Froude number is equal to V upon root GA by T, where A is, so let us take a rectangular channel. Let us suppose we take a rectangular channel. So V will be the velocity of flow in that channel, right? So V will be the velocity of flow in that channel, whereas A is basically the top width. Sorry, A is the area of the. So A is basically the area of this cross section. So area, let us suppose the width is B and depth of flow is Y. So we can say that the area will be width into depth, correct? And T is the major part in this question, in this formula. Basically T is the top width. T is top width. So in case of rectangular channel, the top width will be equal to width only. So it will be equal to B only. So Froude number is equal to V upon root G by upon B. So B and B get cancels and V upon root Gy becomes the Froude number for a rectangular channel, right? So in this way you can calculate the rectangular channel's Froude number, correct? Now this basically the significance of Froude number is due to the gravity forces which predominates in the open channel flow, because the flow is occurring under the action of gravity, hence the gravity force will be predominating in that. So therefore we need to calculate the Froude numbers in open channel flow, correct? Now they might increase the level and ask you that what are the types of flow on the basis of Froude number. So basically we classify different types of flows on the basis of Froude number. For example, the first flow can be critical flow, then it can be subcritical flow, and it can be supercritical flow, right? So when the Froude number is equal to 1, then the flow is critical. When the Froude number is less than 1, it is subcritical, and the Froude number is greater than 1, it is supercritical. So in this way, on the basis of Froude number, you can classify different types of flows. Along with that, you can also classify different flow properties for these kind of flows. So let us take the critical flow. So the velocity of flow at the critical flow of the critical flow will be equal to the critical velocity, or you can say VC. So VC is the critical velocity of flow that is occurring when the flow is critical flow. So the velocity of flow when the flow is critical, then the velocity is known as critical velocity. For subcritical flow, the velocity will be less than VC, and this you can derive from here also. So since Froude number is less than 1 for subcritical flow and Froude number is V upon root GA by T is less than 1, therefore V is less than root GA by T. Clear? Whereas when the flow is critical, the V or the VC is equal to root GY. So root GY is basically VC, therefore we can substitute it here and you will get V is less than VC. So therefore for the subcritical flow, the velocity of flow will be less than the critical velocity of flow. Similarly, you can derive the expression for supercritical flow as well. So when the velocity of flow is greater than the critical velocity, then the flow will be the flow will be supercritical. So for the supercritical flow, the velocity is greater than the critical velocity. Correct? In the same sense, when the flow is critical flow, then the depth of flow at that of that critical flow will be known as the critical depth. So this is critical depth, and for subcritical flow, the depth of flow will be greater than the critical depth of flow. Similarly, for supercritical flow, the depth of flow will be less than the critical depth of flow. Along with that, there is a most significant term which is C naught. So what happens is C naught is basically, let me show you what is C naught first. So they might ask you what is C naught. So basically C naught is the speed of small disturbance wave. So C naught is the small disturbance wave, speed of small disturbance wave in a shallow water body with respect to water. So, and it is also known as ripple speed. So what happens is, ripples are when you throw a stone in the water, then small waves are formed, and these waves are known as ripples, right? And the speed of these waves is known as ripple speed, or the speed of the small disturbance of the wave, and this is known as C naught, right? So C naught is the speed of the small disturbance wave. Now let us come back to our different types of flows. So for critical flow, this velocity or the velocity of flow will be equal to the critical you can say speed of the small disturbance wave. So the velocity of flow will be equal to the C naught. For subcritical flow, the velocity of flow will be less than C naught, and for supercritical flow, the velocity of flow will be greater than C naught. Correct? So for supercritical flows, the velocity of flow will be greater than the ripple speed. Correct? See, basically C naught is the ripple speed. Correct? So and C naught is given as, root GA by T, where G is acceleration due to gravity, A is again the cross section area of the channel, and T is top width. Correct? So as I shown you in the rectangular channel, this will give you the small disturbance wave speed or the ripple speed. Now the major question, which is the most important question, which they were aiming to ask you. They might ask you that this is the most conceptual question, right? This was the reason they were asking you lower level questions. So they might ask you, how will you identify nature of flow without measuring flow characteristics? So basically what they are asking, let us suppose there is a river flowing here, right? So this is the river and it is flowing with the speed V, and you are standing here. Correct? So you are standing here. Let us suppose your dean or your head or your senior, so he is your senior and he is standing here. Correct? This is you. So the senior asks you, that you need to identify the nature of flow. You need to tell me that which flow will be flowing, which flow will be occurring in this channel or this river without measuring any flow properties. Basically, he is asking that you cannot measure the velocity or the depth of flow which are required. Basically, Froude number is equal to V upon root GA by T. So if I know the cross section properties and the velocity of flow, then I can easily know the Froude number, and from Froude number I can classify the types of flow, that which flow will be occurring. But the condition here is that you cannot measure these flow properties. So without measuring flow properties, you need to identify the which kind of flow will be there in the channel. So the major conceptual question is this only. So in this case, what you can do is you just need to take a pebble or a stone from the ground. Clear? So this is a stone, and you throws the stone in the river or the channel, and you need to observe some things, right? So when you throw the pebble or the stone in the channel, and when it interacts with the water, and these kind of ripples are formed, then this flow will be supercritical flow, and if these kind of ripples are forming, then it is subcritical flow, and if you throw a pebble and equal ripples are formed or moving at the upstream or downstream side of the channel, then this will be the still water. So water will be still in this case. Now why the question is why these kind of ripples are creating. So now let me tell you that when the flow will be supercritical, let us suppose we don't know whether the flow is supercritical or subcritical, right? Critical flow is very momentarily, so that cannot be possible, right? So either can it be supercritical or subcritical. So let us suppose the flow is supercritical, right? So for supercritical flow, what happens is I have just told you, for supercritical flow the velocity of flow is greater than C naught or the ripple speed. So the velocity of flow here in this case will be greater than C naught. Clear? And V is the velocity of flow. So the velocity of flow is greater than the ripple speed. So what is happening is, what happens here is, so these ripples will be C naught, and here the velocity of flow is V only. So on the downstream side, if I find the water or the wave speed on the downstream side, then on the downstream side the velocity will be C naught plus V. But on the upstream side, if let us suppose these were ripples and this will be the velocity of ripples, so what happens is, since V is greater than C naught, and we know that upstream travel speed of wave is C naught minus V, and this is relative velocity only. So if this is C naught and I need to find upstream velocity of the wave, so upstream velocity of wave will be equal to C naught minus V. Clear? This will be the ripple speed or the upstream travel speed of wave. But here, since V is greater than C naught or C naught is less than V, therefore since C naught is less than V, so it will come out to be negative, and negative speed means the flow is not possible in the upstream direction. Hence we can infer that the flow will be supercritical. Now what happens in the subcritical case? So on the downstream side, the velocity of wave will be equal to C naught, and the water is flowing as V at the speed of V. So the overall or the relative absolute velocity of the wave on the downstream side will be C naught plus V, and hence you can observe the ripples will be there on the downstream side. So when, and even in the upstream case, since the ripple speed will be C naught, and for subcritical flow the velocity of flow is less than C naught. So here C naught is greater than V for subcritical. So if I find the absolute velocity upstream of the wave, then this will be C naught minus V, and since C naught is greater than V, so it will come out to be positive. Hence the flow is possible on the upstream end also. So when the ripples can travel upstream, then the flow will be subcritical, and when the ripples or the small disturbance wave cannot travel upstream, then the flow will be supercritical. Whereas when the water is still water, the velocity of ripple will be equal in both the direction, that is upstream and the downstream. Since there won't be any velocity is zero, velocity of water is zero, so all the velocity of these ripples will be C naught only. So you will observe a equally spaced ripples formed all around the stone, right? So in this way you can observe different kinds of flow just by observing, right? So since upstream travel speed of wave is C naught minus V, where V is velocity of water with respect to ground, C naught is velocity of wave traveling upstream, therefore for supercritical flow, velocity of flow is greater than C naught, hence no ripple or no wave or ripple can travel upstream, since it will come out to be negative, because C naught minus V will come out to be negative when the flow is supercritical. Clear? So velocity of wave will be negative, and hence no wave or ripple can travel upstream, right? So just by throwing a stone in the water or in the channel, you can easily classify the nature of flow in the flowing in the channel, right? So in this way, DRDO or any in any interview, they can level up your question just from the basics to the infinite level, right? So thank you for watching. I hope it helps you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. For more interesting videos, keep watching, keep practicing. Thank you very much.